Welcome, I'm Jon Caldara, president of the Independence Institute and your devil's advocate, and I taped this before the Broncos won last night, so never mind. Anyway, an incredible show for you. Later on, Wayne Laugesen from the Colorado Springs Gazette to give us the bird's eye view of what's going down in the recall in that area. But first, election laws. Do you know that even if you don't live in the recall districts yet, you can still vote there if you have that intention? To understand that better, the Deputy Secretary of State, Suzanne Staiert, thank you for being here.
Thank you. And
the woman who bails me out of every DUI accusation I have, Shayne Madsen with Jackson Kelly.
Thanks.
I haven't had a DUI.
No.
I worry you with other things. All right, I want to put out something and tell me if I'm right, because I plan on having an intent to go down to the 11th district, that's John Morris's district, and live there. Therefore, I'm going to vote in this recall. That's my intention, to live there. And under the new election law, I have that right to do so. So let me ask you, it seems that under this law, which is the same-day voter registration law, I have to meet 4 criteria. I have to be over 18. I have to have lived in Colorado, anywhere in Colorado, for 22 days. I have to have an address in that district. And I need to affirm that I have the intention of making that my permanent residence. Do I have that right?
You also have to be a U.S. citizen.
Oh, well, I'm screwed there, but other than that?
You have to not have a felony conviction that you're currently serving a sentence for. But other than that, you're correct. Those are the factors.
All right. So this is part of the new election law.
Correct.
All right. Understand it. This is from House Bill 1303.
That's correct.
Which was sponsored by Angela Harone and John Morse, surprisingly. What's special about this law?
Well, in my view, they really didn't change the definition of resident or residence. That remains the underlying statute, and that's where you get this combination of intent to reside plus some sort of evidence of residence, which is an address, a utility bill, something of that nature, your driver's license. But what I think House Bill 1303 did that is different is it allowed you to register in the district or county the day of the election. And it also requires that you would have moved, past tense, ED, the day before. So my view is that since there's no real-time database to verify that you are a resident in that district, the law becomes almost meaningless as to residency in the district or the county. You still can't vote twice, and there are databases in place to prevent that, but you can still register on the day of the election.
All right, and this is pretty amazing. And by the way, we have a website called bringinthevote.com. If you want to get this information, please go to bringinthevote.com and get that information. Now, when I go to vote in a few days down in what I hope will be, what I intend to be my new home of the 11th district, I have to fill out a form. What form do I have to fill out to do same-day voter registration? I'm already registered in my home up in Boulder, but I want to do it down there.
So you're going to fill out a change of address form when you arrive at the voter polling and service center, indicating that you have a new address and that you intend to make this address your home.
What is the title of that form? It's
well,
a voter registration
it's
form?
a voter registration form, but since you're not registering initially for the first time, you'll only be filling out the change of address.
Oh, really? So I don't have to bring anything else, just just a change of address form.
Well, since you won't have a yellow card, you'll need to bring some
What's
kind
a yellow
of ID.
card? Help me with the yellow card. Well, I tell you what, let's back up. Okay. There are 2 recalls going on. I want to make sure I got this right. One down in Pueblo, one in Colorado Springs. This is considered one election, so you can't vote in one and vote in the other. That would be election fraud. But you could vote in one or the other, even if you don't yet live there. I just want to make sure that.
That's correct.
That's nodding your head. I want to make sure that Secretary of State's. Now, this seems like a crazy law. Am I off on this?
Well,
why didn't you guys make some rules about this so that it couldn't be so easy to utilize?
Well, the law itself was written without the participation from the Secretary of State's office, and
he didn't want to talk to them.
We begged them to talk to us, and they just wouldn't give us any draft copies. They wouldn't let us in the room, and they wouldn't give us any information. And so we didn't see the law until maybe 2 or 3 days before its introduction. once it was introduced, it moved through the legislature very quickly, maybe about 2 weeks. And we offered a number of amendments, and I believe we got one of maybe 75 that we had offered.
75.
And not all of them got introduced, because as they continued to not approve them, I think people got frustrated. But once the law was passed, we do have rulemaking authority under the statute, and we did try to pass some rules related to some of the items that were in 1303, particularly this recall. One had to do with the timing of the recall in terms of turning in petitions. We lost that case. The next one had to do with some other rules we had passed. One was about residency, and one was an order that we had issued about this voter information card. Both of those were found to be unconstitutional by the court. So the rules that we had about residency, that you had to actually physically move into the district prior to registering, were tossed along with that. And so we are back to the law as it stood in 1303 without any rules.
What would stop someone from saying they have an intention to move into John Morris's district, and then the next day after they finish voting, change their mind?
Well, and that's the problem we were trying to address in the rules. Because you can, of course, register, a month out and say, I intend to live there on this day, and then maybe have never moved in. And that was our concern, is that people could register, vote, and never move into the district. In the rule we passed, we had talked about different kinds of scenarios that would make it more likely or less likely that you were actually a resident. And all of those scenarios and examples were also tossed with the rule when the rule was thrown out. So we are just left with what was in 1303, which is
what John Morris and Angela Harone wanted to be the law as they
Right.
sponsored it. That's what you're dealing with right now.
And before the amendment, it was 30 days that you had to live in the district and the state. It was called a precinct then, and we don't have precincts anymore, so they struck that language. So before, you had to live 30 days in the precinct and the state, and the voter registration date was 29 days. So when you registered, you necessarily must have met the criteria of the 30. Now we have a situation where it's 22 days in Colorado, no criteria for the district or the precinct or whatever you want to call it now. And that's where we have this problem.
What does this say politically? I mean, and tell me if my speculation is wrong here, but now that we have same-day voter registration, you fill out your form, as you vote, you bring it in, you now say you intend to live there, you get to vote, and then the next election you can go and vote in some other place that you intend to live. I see a situation where every close district becomes, the winner becomes the guy who has the most buses. That is, let's take Kaufman, for example. Kaufman is going to be in a very tight race, but right above his district is Diana DeGette's comfortable district. If people wanted to move across the street for a day and vote, that election will be over. Is this law as crazy as I think it is?
Well, I can't really comment on the lawmaking part of it because I wasn't part of that process. I merely
Nice lawyerly answer. I like that.
observed it after the fact, and I wasn't part of the litigation. But the evil they were trying to remedy is voting twice. I don't know if the whole question of what you have termed it as a gypsy voter, I don't know if that was fully debated. Nor do I know if they really talked about a remedy that would prevent the casting of a vote. I think that's our real question here, is how do you prevent the casting of a vote by somebody who's not really a resident?
So maybe if they're not really a resident, their vote still counts. Afterwards, you might be able to get them for voter mischief, but their vote still is counted. There's no way to pull that vote. Are there provisional ballots?
There are provisional ballots, but most of the provisional ballots we've seen are for people who live outside of the district. There's going to be very few times now that a provisional ballot will be used because somebody coming in, even if you're challenged, if you answer all the questions in the challenge affirmatively, they have to give you a ballot. And that ballot has to be counted, and it's a secret ballot, so they can't mark it and go get it later. That ballot goes into the tabulation.
Let me ask you a couple of technical questions. Our website, bringinthevote.com, and Shayne, thank you for being that legal beagle. Said you can't say this, you can say that, you can't say this, and keeping it within the law. You've seen our website, bringinthevote.com, where we lay out the requirements to vote in a district where you don't yet live. Do you see any inaccuracies in what we've put up?
I haven't seen anything inaccurate in the text of the, I mean, I understand it's a little bit in jest, so I'm not
Right.
commenting on the website itself, but as far as the content, it's accurate.
So you're not saying you like the graphics? You should
Right.
like the graphics, they're cute.
Well, I like the graphics, but I'm, to us,
The words work out.
encouraging people to,
And I want to make it
do
clear,
something.
I'm not encouraging anyone, but I think it's important that people in Colorado understand their full voting rights. And that every Coloradan, if they choose to vote, should be able to under their voting rights. Now, I've heard people claim that what I'm doing is going to be election fraud. And if anybody does what I'm doing and have a genuine intent and meet the criteria to vote, that's voter fraud. I think that's voter intimidation when people say that. That people have a right to exercise their voting rights. And I know that Dan Pabon said that this is getting close to voter fraud. That's voter suppression. That's intimidating people by scaring them that what I'm doing is illegal. Is what I'm doing illegal from the Secretary of State's point of view?
if you intend to live in that district, and that is your intent in your mind to remain there and make that your permanent home, then it's not illegal.
Is this voter suppression when people say, you can't do that?
Well, it's uncharted waters. We're going to soon find out what it is.
All right. Let me,
So.
someone told me an interesting story, and tell me about this. Why are we having this election under these rules so quickly? Your office hasn't had much time to deal with them. The Secretary of States and clerks and others haven't had much time. Didn't the original bill have the start date for this new law next year, the 2014 general election?
There are drafts of the bill, early drafts, that show a start date in 2014.
And it was changed
Yes.
to upon the governor's signature this year.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I know neither one of you can speculate on this, but I would ask, it sure sounds coincidental that as soon as the ballots or the petitions for recall started circulating, that this law was changed in committee so that these new laws would be in effect for these recalls. Coincidence? I'll let you decide. All right,
You're a cynical person.
I am a cynical person. All right, got just a moment here. What do people need to know if they wish to vote in one of these districts, but they don't yet live there?
Well, I think the Secretary of State's office has outlined their standards and criteria. And again, as I said at the very beginning, what is a residence and what is a resident has been the subject of numerous cases, and it is an intent-based standard, as it is in most states. So that's what they need to do, as the Secretary of State outlined.
Shayne, thank you for all you do keeping me out of jail. I really appreciate that. Thank you for what you do at the Secretary of State. Thank you for listening. Remember, it's bringinthevote.com. Check it out for yourself. If you're over 18, if you lived here for more than 22 days, if you have an intent on living in one of these districts, you need to look at this website. And if you wish to use your voter rights, you need to know your voter rights. Thank you so much. We'll be right back.